AI is no longer a tool that is nice to use while you work. AI is actually becoming the work. It is quite literally before our eyes, turning into an operating system in which all work will be done. The good news is this levels the playing field. The thing that will separate you from a coworker or your business from another is how well you leverage AI in your workflows and in the work you do. In 2023, you opened ChatGPT and asked it a question. But in 2024, you started giving it more context: PDFs, screenshots, long documents, code bases, transcripts, and even spreadsheets. But in 2025, AI actually started to take action. It could browse, it could use tools, it can write code, it could edit files, it can run commands, and it can complete parts of a workflow. But in 2026, a huge important shift is happening. AI is becoming less like one assistant and more like a system of workers. And that means that the valuable skill is no longer just knowing how to get a good answer out of ChatGPT. The valuable skill is being able to look at messy business processes or work processes at your job and understand how AI should actually handle it. So, what context does the model need? What tools should it have access to? What should be automated? What should be reviewed by a human? What should be remembered for next time? These are all questions we should be asking as we're using AI in our workflows. But this is ultimately what it means to become AI native. It means you stop thinking of AI as one chatbot where you type a prompt and hope for a good response, and you start thinking of AI as a system for getting work done, an operating system. And by the end of this video, you'll understand how to stop casually chatting with AI and start operating it as a system that can research, reason, execute, review, and ultimately help move real business forward. So with that said, let's go ahead and get in. You're gonna get a lot out of this video, so pull out a pen and paper and let's get to it. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna open up Codex. For your reference, Claude Code is virtually the same thing. As of the time of this recording, I like Codex more. I switch back and forth. I pay $200 a month for both plans, and they're both really, really great. So with Codex, we're not going to go deep into the details here. If you're not familiar, you can basically choose to work inside of projects. You can just do a basic chat like you would do inside of GPT. For most of my work, I do it inside of the Obsidian folder for reasons that we will talk about in a minute. It's essentially because it has all of the context of my work and of my life in there. So the first part that I want to break down, the first point of this video, is natural language is now the interface of getting work done. So the better you can communicate, the better your outputs will be. No longer do you need to learn coding language. No longer do you need to learn specific workflows inside of a CRM or some type of marketing tool. It's all about using natural language. And so for this first example, I'm going to use a real life example, and I'm going to say, review my last 3 calls and emails with Justin. Tell me where it left off. Let me just give it a little bit more context about who Justin is and where he comes from. What are the next steps for me, and any advice for how I should handle these? I'm going to do fast here just so that we can go quickly. So basically, when you're using GPT or using Codex, you can choose low, medium, high, extra high. Fast significantly increases usage, but it also goes really, really fast. So what's going to happen here is Codex is going to decide, okay, I need to do this. I need to figure out this information. Where can I find this information? And what it's going to do is it is going to first review my vault, which is Obsidian that I was talking about, has all of the context of everything in there. So it says, it already has a prior read, which is great. So it can pull context from there, but I'm going to verify that against Gmail and call source trails before giving you advice, because this is exactly the kind of deal state that can get stale quietly. So as you can see, it's searching Gmail, it's searching Granola, which is what I use to record calls. And it's also basing that on top of the context that it has inside of Obsidian for me. So let's go ahead and give this just a moment to see where it comes from. It's thinking now, so it's probably sourced the information. You can also click on these too if you want to, and you can just see the searches it ran. You can go in Granola, and you can even click into the transcripts that it's looking. So the calls tell a very different emotional story from the final email. April and May were real enthusiasm and practical planning, not tire kicking. The later emails show the break happened around contract signature and internal timing, which is exactly what happened. Basically, I had this lead, I had this client. we had an amazing conversation. I put in way too much time into it, thought it was a done deal. Turns out it wasn't. Many such cases for anyone that is in sales. And if we go back to the initial prompt, I just wanted to review the last 3 calls and emails, tell me where the deal left off, what are the next steps for me, and any advice for how I should handle this. So I'm going to be very interested to see what kind of feedback this comes back with. We just got the output back. It took about a minute. And so short version, it gives me a short version. It gives me the last 3 calls with information. And then it gives me the emails that cooled it down. And then it gives me the next steps. It even wrote an email that I could potentially send to the potential client/customer and basically just gave me the exact next steps I need to execute. It also referenced some citations so I can understand how did you come to this conclusion? Did you make this up? Did you actually think through it? How does it make sense? Where did this come from? And it also updated the vault. So the mid-July follow-up timing is captured in the communications folder, essentially. So this is how one way that you can basically use natural language to go ahead and I'm just trying to think how long this would have taken me to do myself. It probably would have taken me at least 30 minutes to go through the emails, read the call transcripts, put the call transcripts inside of AI, diagnose them, think about them. Instead, it took me maybe 120 seconds max. Now, so I want to give you another example. And this is just kind of driving into the point even more. Your work is officially becoming a series of workflows as opposed to work. And so if you think about it like this, right? Let's think about this from a business owner's perspective. Customer service and customer inquiries is something that takes up a ton of time. But now you could easily use something like Codex to do the following. So let's say an email arrives in a shared inbox for a business or a group of people that share a job role or title in a company. Well, before, this would take a lot of manual work. You'd have to read it. You have to decide what the next steps are. You'd have to decide who to assign it to. You'd have to decide a bunch of stuff. But now what you can do is you can basically have AI read the email, classify the intent. It could say, oh, this goes to billing, or this goes to support, or this goes to Jeff, or this goes to Susie. And as an example, AI can send it to the best person, queue. Or here's some examples. It can, like I was just saying, it can go to the billing team, it can go to the sales team, it can go to the general queue, or it could just, stay in your inbox if it's relevant for you. It can also summarize this, so a concise summary for fast review. And it can do what's called an ambiguity check. So if it's clear and confident, then it can either respond or forward it to the right person. If it's uncertain, it can flag it and escalate it to a human. So a lot of the workflows I build in business are essentially taking processes like this and automating them. So if a customer writes, hi, I was charged twice for an order, it can classify as a billing and duplicate charge, and it can route it to the billing team or the refund team, or it can summarize, and if there's any ambiguity, it says refund may have already been processed in another system, so let's escalate. And if it escalates, it sends it to the billing specialist with the summary, customer context, and the reason. So this is an incredibly powerful workflow for a business owner that's drowning in manual emails and needs to free up a process. Maybe you are drowning in work as well, and maybe you're drowning in emails. You could do the same thing. It doesn't have to be a business owner that can put this type of situation together. So agents are teammates, not search boxes. What do I mean by that? Well, let's go ahead and kick off another new chat. And let's see. Okay, so this is going to be a cool one. I have this concept where I create content, and I like to create content based on the work that I'm actively doing inside my business. And so one thing that I struggle with is sometimes A, taking the time to do this, but B, just sitting down and thinking about what are all the things that I can make content on, that I'm an expert on, that I've been talking about over the last couple of weeks or working on the last couple of weeks. I don't know the answer to that question. So let me turn off speed first because I don't want to burn through all of my credits. I'm going to turn on extra high. A lot of people will say you can get by fine with medium and high. I think you can too, but for knowledge work and thinking, I like to do extra high. I want to create a new automation where you review all of my work in business context in the last 24 hours, compare it against the last month or so. Then I want you every morning to send me a personal message in Slack with a topic for content I can create. This would be a short form video or carousel on LinkedIn, not YouTube. How do we do this? So it's going to think about this for a minute. What it's probably going to do is come up with a way that we can create this automation. Think about how powerful this is. It's going to think about it. It's going to tell me how it would recommend creating the automation. And then likely all I'll have to do is just say something along the lines of, yeah, this sounds good. And so first things first, what it's going to do is check the vault rules first, because part of working inside of my Obsidian folder is that I have rules that must be followed every single time an action is taken. So you can see it searching through those files in those folders. But the shape is pretty clear. So a daily context sweep, compare it against the longer arc, produce one LinkedIn native content idea, deliver it privately in Slack. So it's got the constraints now. This is say evidence bound. These are just rules that I've set once again inside of Obsidian. And let's see what kind of output it has here. So if you want automation, actually, I treat it as a separate explicit exception. Yeah, so one wrinkle, the existing vault says draft communications never send. So that's a rule that I have. I never want you to send messages inside of Slack. It found that rule. And it says if we want this automation to DM you in Slack, we would need to treat this as an explicit exception for this one automation only. And so I already have automations that essentially give us a morning brief. Let me take you over to those really quickly. So I do have these two automations already. For example, create the morning daily brief and refresh the Obsidian vault with overnight context, blah, blah, blah. Read available sources. I'm not going to get too into this, but basically I have a morning brief. It goes through everything that I do, everything that I've done, and gives me a new morning brief. So as you can see, it was referencing that morning brief. This gives us most of the machinery already. I'm checking the save automations now so we can either extend that workflow cleanly or add a sibling job that turns the same context into a content prompt. So I'm going to set this up as a reviewable proposal rather than silently flipping it on, because it needs one explicit send exception, one private Slack DM to you, one each morning, nothing else sent or mutated. I'll default it to shortly after the existing 7 a.m. brief so it can benefit from the same context. The proposal card is now in the app for review. I'm adding a short session memory. Okay, great. So it has created a reviewable automation. How it works. Every morning at 7:30 a.m., after your existing brief, it reviews the last 24 hours of work context, compares it against the last roughly month of Vault and Connector context, and sends you one private Slack DM with a LinkedIn short form video or carousel idea. I set the guardrails tightly. So you should see the automation proposal card in Codex to approve or adjust. I also logged. So let's go ahead and open it. So you can change the automations here. I would definitely want it to be on high. Create one private. Yeah, so this is the prompt. Great. So you should see the automation proposal. And here's the cool thing about Codex. How do I know if this is turned on and active? There is no question that you cannot ask this thing. You can ask it anything, and it will walk you through all of it. You should never get stuck on anything because you can just ask it the most basic and simple questions. Instead of me having to go search and see if it's active and turned on, I can just ask it, how do I make sure? Okay, it looks like it's saved. So I'm reading the actual status and schedule rather than relying on the earlier proposal language. So it's reading the automation and I found the job. It is active. Cool. So I'll also open it through the app's automation view. Perfect. So it's turned on. I verified the saved automation. You should also see the automation card rendered in Codex since it's active. Perfect. So will I get a Slack DM sent to Sam, my personal channel, every morning? I suspect that there might be a bit of manual work I'll have to do here because my previous settings set it so that it would never send a message in Slack, only a draft. Let's go check out the automations page while this thinks. Okay, yeah, looks like we are here. So I can also run this now because that's the thing with automations is you can run them manually if you want to. Okay, it says that is the intended behavior. The automation should send exactly one private Slack DM to you with the LinkedIn content idea. So yeah, it does not hard code a Slack user channel ID, so it would work if Codex can resolve you in Slack. To make it sturdier, I can update the automation to explicitly say, send to Sam Knight's own personal, yeah. Yes, I strictly want it to send to my personal. But let's see if it worked. So to see if it worked, to confirm, I'm going to open up Slack. Boom. Just like this. Topic, AI projects need a definition of done before a demo. It even says sent using ChatGPT. So now every morning that automation will show up inside of Slack for me to be able to review. And I mean, this is just incredible. Like what we're able to do now. That took me 120 seconds. Now I have an automation set up that's going to help me push my business forward tremendously. Okay, next, I want to talk about how context is the new leverage. You need context if you want to be successful with your business. And so this is my Obsidian, and it is incredibly robust. I have To-Do, I have notes, I have wikis with all of my clients, I have raw info with all of my call transcripts, email transcripts, I have my daily output, I have my personal stuff, I have YouTube assets, I have agents. This is kind of like the instructions. I'm not going to go through this because there is some pretty proprietary data, but this is incredibly robust. And if you want to set this up, all you have to do is click the description. I'm adding my GitHub profile that you can, or not my profile, but basically the way that I set this up, you just copy the URL of GitHub, paste it into Codex or Claude Cowork, and just say, I want to set this up for myself. Can you do it? And it'll do it. It'll handle it. Context is so important, especially in these tools. They don't use memory in the same way that like ChatGPT or Claude does. So you have got to have your context locked in, or the outputs you're going to get are very poor. My context updates every morning and every night, so it's always fresh. It's always the latest information, and it just works really, really, really well. Let's talk about skills, okay? So skills are, skills are basically repeatable prompts. I have a whole video on them, but quickly I do want to go through them. So for example, I have an Obsidian to-do. So anytime that I want to update my to-do list, instead of having to open up the folders, go into the subfolders, update it, whatever, I can just do the Obsidian to-do skill. And the way that you prompt that is just /. And this is the same for Cowork, Claude Code, and Codex. Obsidian to-do. Rake the leaves. Okay, like that's just an example, but it could be anything. It could be business related. It could be personal related. And let's say due tomorrow. And it'll go in there and it'll update it. I mean, it's really quite amazing. But what if we took it a step further and we used a different skill? So let's use the Nano Banana thread card. So for example, I use Nano Banana, Gemini's image generator, to create threads, right? And these threads can be anything from personal content to business content. I want to make a post about how to use Codex as an agent. Can you take the following info and give me the prompts? No longer about prompting. Context is king. Humans now manage agent workflows more than their own work. So this is just an example. The output should essentially be, so it has a very specific, and the cool thing about this is you can click this, but it's a very specific format for the types of output that I want and the output that I like. The workflow is usually identify the source part SAM supplied, choose the card mode, and yeah, you don't really need to worry about too much about this because this is a very specific style that I use. But basically, look, the output is 7 slides. All I have to do is attach a profile picture of myself. And as a matter of fact, why don't I just take you in here really quickly to just see how it works, okay? So we're going to use Flash. We're going to, and I just made this up on the fly, so I'm not really sure how great this output's going to be, but we're going to try it out anyways. Let me pull up a profile picture or just an image of myself that can be used. We'll use this one. And let's see what happens. So basically, it gave us a prompt. The output is supposed to be like a thread card in the sense of looking like a tweet or something like that. And as you can see, it gave me 7 that I could actually use. So I could easily turn this into a real post on LinkedIn. I mean, this is crazy. Some errors here. I don't like these spelling errors. You can do the same thing on ChatGPT. Sometimes the output's a little bit better, but I could also just say the text is mismatched. Can you fix it? But the point is, it absolutely nailed that workflow. I mean, it's quite incredible. So another skill that I love to use is deep research. When you're using a deep research tool like in Gemini, there's a very specific way to prompt it. And instead of having every time to say, research Gemini, deep research, best practices, I can give it the best practices and say, create a skill out of this. So now I can just say, how to heal lower back injury from deadlifting or whatever. And it will take the best practices and give me a prompt that I can put into Gemini deep research. Let me just check on this image. Yeah, so it messed that part up. But anyways, so that's skills. Skills are very important. I was giving a workshop last week to a business. If you repeat a prompt more than really twice, I would recommend turning it into a skill. Skills are tremendously helpful at shortening the time that it takes to actually get work done. Now, what about external tools inside of Codex? Because there's a lot of them. So these are called plugins, and they're called connectors inside of Claude Cowork and Code. Same exact thing, though. And these connectors, I mean, they kind of cover everything. I mean, there's really no categories that are not covered here. But the point is, you can basically add these, and you can call them inside of your work. So you could do by your workspace, personal, by OpenAI, computer use in Chrome. These are the two ones I use the most. And so, for example, if you want to use a plugin or a connector, you can just scroll down here, pretty easy. Or you can also just slash, Figma, for example. But let's use the computer use one. This is one that I absolutely love. Or actually, let's use Chrome. So I'm going to say, go into my Chrome browser and open Yahoo News. This is a very random example. But the point is, I'll give you a better example while it's doing this. So I had to hire for a role that I was hiring for, and I had over 100 applicants. It knew the criteria I was looking for in those applicants because it was connected to the context inside of my Obsidian. And instead of me going through every single profile, I basically was just able to have it go in there and do all of it for me. So it was able to go through all of the information. It was able to search every single person that had applied for that role. It was able to compare it against the criteria that I was looking for. And then it was able to recommend the top 3 to 5 people so that I didn't have to do it myself. And I did it by just saying, go into my Chrome browser and open Yahoo News. You can also do computer use, for example, so you can control apps from Mac. There's a lot. I would recommend you to really find some time to explore these different plugins because they're incredibly powerful and they just work very, very well. Now, what about async agents turning into work systems? So I've already kind of talked about this, but daily briefs, weekly pipeline reviews, recurring research, content ideas. Basically, if you are repeating a workflow and you have to do something every day, well, there's 2 ways to think about this. If you're repeating inputs, that should become a skill. If you're repeating workflows, that should become an automation or a task inside of Cowork. And just think about it. What do you have to do every single day? Do you have to check your email? Do you have to send a message? Do you have to check in with someone? These are the things that should be automated and put in the front of your automation so that you're not having to repeat over and over and over again. It's incredible how much these automations, how much time these things can save. As a matter of fact, just opened up Claude Code here because they have some good examples of automations that you can run. So if you're running code, you can do a PR review digest. You can do an issue triage. You can do an email triage. You can have your briefing like I talked about. You can do a system check inside of Cowork. They probably have other examples too. Let's go to routine, scheduled. So yeah, kind of same thing here. Daily briefing, Friday to do, morning to do, more ideas. There's a million things you can do here. I would really recommend trying this out, whether you're in Cowork, Claude Code, or inside of Codex. Routines are your friend. Let's address the obvious question in the room. If everyone has access to these tools and everyone can basically have this superhuman output, what differentiates you from me or you from the crowd? How do you stand out? Well, really, what it comes down to are taste, domain experience, quality assurance, source checking, decision making, and knowing what good looks like matter more than anything else. Taste is the most important aspect here. That's just what it is. So taste can mean a lot of different things, but it's essentially, do you have an inner knowing? Not do you understand, do you know with every fiber in your being what good is? And that's different depending on if you're talking about code, if you're talking about graphic design, if you're talking about copywriting, if you're talking about sales. What I'm getting at is the more of an expert you are in a domain, the more taste you'll likely have. And the better your taste, the better your outputs, and the more differentiated you will be from the pack. So if you want to succeed with AI and with these tools, you need to acquire and develop taste. This is one of the most important points of this entire video, because how else are you supposed to stand out from a crowd that has access to the superhuman technology? And that brings me to my last point. The winners will manage agent teams. And so what does that look like? The new job, whether it's your business or you're just an employee and you're trying to get the most out of yourself and of your agents, one operator, many specialized agents, one shared context layer. So winners will not just chat with AI anymore. They will manage systems of specialized agents. Some examples of these specialized agents could be a sales agent, a client delivery agent, a research agent, a content agent, proposal agent, memory agent, operations agent, quality assurance agent. Basically, whatever your domain is, whatever your role is in the business, whatever your job is, you can even bring this over to your personal life. You need to manage all of these different types of agents and make sure that you apply that taste so that you're getting the best output possible. But in order to have all of these work correctly, you also need context. So you need your files and notes underlying inside of Obsidian ideally. You need skills. I highly recommend using as many skills as possible. You need tools and plugins and connectors so that you can reference Gmail, you can reference Granola, you can go to Docs, Sheets, Slack, CRM. You need automations so that you can have recurring work being done that you don't have to do manually every single day. And really important, you need human judgment, final approval, taste, business context, source checking. All of these things flow in and without yourself. So we're going from chatbots to agent teams to business operating systems. And if you watch this video through and through, you should now understand how to run an operating system of agents for your job, for your life, or for your business. And if there's something you're kind of hung up on and you're wondering, what do I do next? How do I get the most out of this? Leave a comment. I reply to every single comment. I am making content that's trying to make AI accessible for people that are not engineers and might be a little bit intimidated by it. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you leave a comment. I'm happy to reply. I hope this video was helpful. You are now officially certified to be an agent operator. Go out there, improve your business, improve your workflow, and I'll see you guys in the next video.